Hi, and welcome to the season 3 of the Working While Homeschooling podcast, the podcast for workingwhilehomeschooling.com, where our mission is to help homeschooling parents make money, maybe even have a career, while continuing to homeschool and without losing their sanity. My name is Julie, and I am your host and resident career coach today. I want to thank you all for joining us and listening in. I hope you're doing well. Today's episode is all about prepping and beginning your brand new homeschool year. So join in and you can see how I get started. The concept of full year homeschool schedule planning is all about keeping your sanity. Learn how to plan an entire homeschool year all at once. As a working homeschooling mom for 8 years now, I know that even a little bit of pre-planning can save a whole lot of my sanity moving forward. And now for just $35, not only do you receive this 1.5 hour long course, grouping all homeschool planning together not only saves your time and energy, but it lowers your stress in the long term, in addition to help keeping great notes for your evaluation portfolios. My organization and system assists you in keeping to the learning goals you set for each child, and yet opens new doors for creativity and dealing with the unexpected. Check out my course, Planning and Organizing Your Entire Homeschool Year, now just for $35. I look forward to walking you through the steps to organize your entire homeschool year all at once. As I mentioned, we're going to talk about starting our brand new homeschool year. I know it is early in August, but I wanted to kind of go over this, but I will be starting our homeschool year on Monday, and that's kind of crazy. I got everything finished in my planning just a week ago when my last books just finally showed up. And so I wanted to kind of go over, for those of you who are not homeschool veterans and have your own system, how I've kind of gotten used to starting our program and a couple little tips about just getting everything going. Now, as you heard before in our little blurb, I do firmly believe in planning my entire homeschool year at once. I have learned this through a lot of trial and error and a lot of errors. And so I've just learned it's just better to get all the planning out of the way. My planning, when people look at it, they think, oh my gosh, she's so organized. And guys, I'm just not. I'm not naturally organized. Let's say I kind of hyper organize in order to cope. I am not a naturally organized person. So I do all my homeschool planning over the summer all at once, kind of, as my little summer project. I try to do it really quickly and get it over with, because it's just, planning is not my favorite thing to do. And when my kids were younger and I was using kind of one of those boxed curriculum sets, honestly, it was easier because the curriculum really, one of the things I love about kind of traditional homeschool programs and curriculums is most of them do 95% of the planning for you. They have the little teacher book that you open it up and it says day 1, do this, day 2, do that. And as a homeschooling mom, even though I've been doing this for going on 10 years now, I still love that. I love not creating my own lesson plans. And as a working homeschooling parent, frankly, I just don't have time to do that. So I will do all of my lesson planning if I have to create my own. Sometimes I do. I do that over the summer when I kind of don't have as much going on in our lives. When work tends to slow down for me around July. The kids aren't in homeschool daily around July. So June, July tend to be my big months of planning. This also helps me figure out where my blanks are and where the kind of issues are, what I have not thought about, and so on. So if you look in our courses, there is a course called Planning Your Entire Homeschool Year at Once. I know, really great name. And basically, this is my own personal system that I've just honed over many, many years. And it's great because, as I go through, I can see that, this math that I chose really is only going to last a semester versus a full year. So I need to make sure I've planned enough math for example, or maybe this Spanish program I got, frankly, is going to last me 2 years instead of 1. That's okay too. But I love when you open up the math book and it tells you what to do every single day. And it's really easy. I just copy down what they've put in the front of each book into my Excel spreadsheet, which for some of you, you might be thinking that's redundant because it's in the front of the book. So why do I need to copy it down? Mainly that is for me to see everything all in one page. So I can see the whole week in one page, and I can see what we're doing every single day. I can see how long courses take. For example, I realized that my history course that my kids are going to be doing actually has 160 lessons versus, I don't know how, it basically is going to last me another month of full school than I expected, than we typically do in a year. So I won't be finishing their history and literature course until mid-June, when everything else is going to finish in early May. Things like that. So, I plan for holidays, I plan for breaks, and it just kind of keeps me going. One of the great things I love about this is I, as a parent, as the working homeschooling parent, I'm not having to dig through 16 different books trying to figure out what's going on what day, because it's in each individual subject book. It's all there right in one place. That saves my sanity. Anything I can do to make my life easier throughout the year, I do. So a couple tips I recommend. Have a soft start. Okay, so that's one of the things I've kind of come to. When my kids were younger, I didn't do that. I could do everything all on the first day. But as my kids are getting older, my oldest is hitting high school this year. One of the things I've done to kind of get us back into the groove of school is to have a soft opening. So if you guys have ever, had a business opening or open house, you know that sometimes a business will have a soft opening to kind of work out the kinks and to try different things out. So that is what I've started to do in homeschool as well. So some of our courses that maybe will be lasting longer throughout the year, I will start just a few weeks early. I will start those courses just a few weeks earlier than all the other courses to kind of give us a head start on those programs. For example, our history/literature program that I use through Veritas Press, it is quite long and quite extensive. And it can be a little intense when the kids are just first starting the program, and so they need to get used to it. So I try to start that one first to give us a little bit of head start, because if I didn't, we would be doing it until August every year. So give us a little bit of head start, but also to kind of let the kids get used to it and get used to the system before they have to be starting all of their other subjects. So this year, our quote unquote soft start is going to be that history course, or half of it, and math, just so we can kind of get those two, which are kind of our big programs, get those settled the first few weeks. So we'll be starting our quote unquote soft start on Monday. And that's going to give me 2 weeks of working out the kinks and kind of getting the bulk core of our program going and make sure they understand how it works before I'm throwing everything at them at once. And that's really the idea, is to kind of like work your kids up to the full program. So you're not just slamming them all the first day and it's completely overwhelming and it feels miserable and all of that. So we are doing a 2-week soft start this year. Usually I do like a week or so, not a big deal, just to start the first week with very simple. So for all of you that are especially new to homeschooling, or if your kids are moving up into those older years and maybe your programs are getting a little bit more intensive as they grow up, I do recommend the idea of a soft start. Yes, you can have a traditional first day of school program and lesson your official first day where they do everything. But to throw them into everything all at once and expect them to kind of understand how to work everything, that can be a little bit much and a little bit intense for our kids. So again, we're going to start small, just pick one or two subjects and then to kind of slowly add on. There is absolutely nothing saying that you have to do every single thing every single day. So that is kind of my thought process behind the idea of doing a soft start. Beyond that, one of the things I do look at is doing some sort of celebration for back to school, which we'll talk about in a future episode about how to celebrate your first day of homeschool. You'll see a lot of homeschool groups may organize something like a party or a picnic, and I really don't know how that's going to go this year. I can imagine that there won't be a lot of that this year. Now, one tradition that I think seems to go across the board in homeschooling is the day that the local public schools go back to school, we don't. And that's just a silly little kind of thumbing your nose at the public school system, and that just because you're going back to school, we don't have to go back to school. Oftentimes that might be when the homeschool groups will get together and do a park day or something of that nature, just to celebrate the fact that you're not in public school. But you can celebrate your not back to school however you like. We're going to come back to that in another episode, so don't worry, I'll go into that in more detail. Another thing I really like to do is make sure during the summer is when I try to organize all the extracurriculars, kind of figure out our schedule even before I start planning the homeschool year. So if they're going to be doing online courses, or if they're going to be taking tennis or any kind of other in-person co-ops or something like that, I typically will try to figure all of that out in the summer and get them signed up and get all that kind of stuff settled in our calendar. And then I plan our book work, as I like to call our traditional homeschool curriculum. Our book work, I organize around that. So for those of you new homeschooling parents that are worried about how are you going to fit everything in, or how are you going to socialize your kids, or whatever it might be, is frankly, I start with that. I start with the socialization, I start with the extracurriculars, and then I plan our book work around that, which is so opposite of public school brain, right? Public school brain is schools from 8 to 3, and extracurriculars come after school. And then you figure, school is already planned for you, so, you just plan the after school portion or the weekends or whatever it is. I actually do the opposite. Yes, us, traditional homeschoolers, we're all annoyed by the question about what about socialization? We're all annoyed by that because we all know homeschoolers can socialize with the best of them. But one of the things as a working homeschooling parent I do is I start with that. I think socialization becomes a bigger question when you're working in homeschooling. It becomes harder to make sure you're getting it in. So I figure those things out first, and then I work my homeschool plan around them. So for example, if our co-op was all day Wednesday, I purposely don't plan book work on Wednesdays because we're going to be at co-op all day. And by the time we get home, we're all brain fried and nobody wants to do math. So why would I set ourselves up for failure? Why would I do that? I plan a 4-day book work week because I know Wednesdays we're out of the house doing stuff all day long. If I know that typically my daughter is taking a college level art class on Thursday afternoons, then I'm going to try to make her Thursdays just a little bit lighter so she can get out of the house on time and all of her schoolwork is already done before she has to jump in a car and run to art class. So, you can plan ahead for those kinds of things. Now, I know this sounds silly, but maybe to you working homeschooling parents, it won't be. When I'm planning these things, obviously I put them on my work calendar. I purposely plan a half an hour block for travel time because I would work right up until the minute they were supposed to be there. And I realized I was forgetting to allot time for the commute. So I know that sounds silly, but when I'm working out my calendar, I had an extra little block above it and it says leave. So if I'm supposed to be there at 2, even if it's 5 minutes away, I plan to stop work at 1:30 because that always drags out like to 1:40. And then by the time you get everyone out of the house in the car and everyone's gotten their stuff and gotten their shoes on, that's another 10 minutes, right? So I have just learned in our family, you got to block off an extra half an hour if you actually want to be there anywhere on time. So if they need to be there at 2, my calendar actually has a little appointment on there at 1:30 that says leave. So I can actually get off work at the right time. So, little things like that are the things that I'll figure out over the summer. I'll pre-plan ahead and organize and set up. And then I will kind of organize all of our curriculums. And then I will realize, oh, yes, I was planning to do leadership this year as one of kind of the things that I wanted to work on with the girls. And I realized I've overbooked them solid this year. So I took leadership out. So that's one of the things I like to look at is as you start to kind of lay it out in that Excel spreadsheet that I show you during the course, I can see where I've either done too much or not done enough or so on and so on. So this year, let's talk about what I'm using. I am using Veritas Press, their omnibus self-paced program as our, let's say, first core curriculum. It covers literature, history, and theology all wrapped up into one. So for example, when you're studying the Reformation, you're reading a biography of Martin Luther, they're doing video kind of class setting with questions and things about it and learning about the Reformation. And, maybe they are also, doing some sort of art project or whatever that goes with the medieval time period and the Reformation and that kind of stuff. So I base everything off of that Veritas Press omnibus program. We do the self-paced online computer program. They do have different ways of doing it. They have the You Teach. So Mama, you teach it yourself. You get all the books and the lesson plans and do it yourself. They have the live courses. And they also, where there's a little teacher on your video screen and your kid kind of video chats with the teacher and then they run it all. And then they have this omnibus self-paced recorded program with really great video lectures and questionnaires on the screen and that sort of thing. We have chosen to do the omnibus because I didn't want to be tied to a live class, so I could have a lot more flexibility with our schedule. Also, time zones right now for us are just an issue, so the recorded courses are better. We also are using teaching textbooks for math, which I just like. We've been doing it since second or third grade, and the system works for us. So since it's not broke, I ain't fixing it. My kids will be doing pre-algebra and algebra 1 this year. I am using a local Spanish tutor to do Spanish for my oldest, since she's entering high school and we need to get the language credit in, the foreign language credit. So I'm using a local Spanish tutor to do Spanish for her. If you're doing a foreign language class, if you're choosing a tutor for your foreign language, this is a personal thing as a multicultural, multilingual family. We are very adamant that whoever is teaching our kids Spanish actually be a native Spanish speaker. Nothing against anyone who is not a native Spanish speaker, but dialect and accents are really important. And so, especially to my husband, who is fully bilingual, I'm awful. And really of this is to combat my Southern Alabama accent when I'm trying to speak Spanish. It's pretty horrendous. Do you need to worry about foreign languages before high school? Only if you really want to be honest. It is important to us. We have been attempting to raise our kids to be bilingual since the beginning. So we did require our child to do Spanish in her high school years as her foreign language, honestly, because there is a CLEP course so she can CLEP out of that for college when she tests out of that. So that's kind of my personal goal for her for high school. Both of my girls will be doing writing with a writing tutor once a week. I'm using Jensen's writing for my youngest. Jensen's is great. It is literally old school writing program. This is how you write a paragraph. This is how you write a paper. The downside of it is it's like super old school, and the guy who kind of teaches it and wrote it, he's really excellent, but he's really dry and really, really boring. So my tutor likes to use the book as kind of her basis of walking through the program, but they do all the examples and the writing samples that they do, she does with them so they can choose their whatever they want to write on. It's just really dry. It's extreme, but it's like, 1960s, 1950s, 1980s, depending on where you went to school. It's old school writing that we got as kids, in the early 80s. So that's what I like about it. My older one has finished Jensen's, and so we're using Veritas Press program for writing. It's called Writing a Curriculum. I'm writing one, basically. It's a really good program, looks really interesting, and it's all about using that kind of persuasion to kind of get your point across and convince people. So it's kind of just moving through their program. For science, we're still using Apologia, frankly, just because it's easier on me. There are pluses and minuses with Apologia. I think it's fine, to be honest. Some people don't like it. It is faith-based, and that can be a plus or minus depending on who you talk to. Now, Apologia just recently has begun coming out with recorded courses of their live classes. So if you like the live class through Zoom, the kind of group class, Apologia does have that available. The time zone has always been an issue for us, or when they schedule the classes is always a problem. So I'm super, super excited about the concept of these recorded courses coming out for their science. So we are not doing it this year. They're just not offering the courses I want for this year. But as we go through, we will jump into that. I'm just very, 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 very excited about these recorded courses. So if you're from Apologia and you're listening to me, 2 thumbs up, guys. I love that. My kids are also doing music lessons, one-on-one music lessons this year. That we do not have a local homeschool band or homeschool orchestra or any kind of those programs that they can really sign up for, which is a shame. They're just not here. My oldest will be doing some programs through study.com. That is a really interesting online program. It's kind of different and kind of unique. So if you have never checked that out, you can check out study.com. We will be doing that for Psychology 101. Now, she needs this for college. She's kind of very interested into art therapy. So we are looking at courses that are going to assist her to get through kind of, maybe even test out of some of these courses early. So since she's technically in 9th grade this year, we're starting off very simple, and we're just going to do one class, see how it goes, see what we need to help her with. She is also doing a study skills course through Mr. D Math. Google that. He's offering a really deep, thorough study skills course, and she's been taking it over the summer. I signed her up for it before I realized it was not just a thing you could do over the summer. It's a full year. So she's, I'd say 1/3 of the way through that already. So she will continue with that through the year. It's pretty intense, to be honest. It's a good solid hour or more of work each day if you divide the days into, divide the week into 4. And I wasn't really expecting that. But we're going to do it because it's frankly the best study skills course I've been able to find. And since we really didn't focus on quote unquote testing in their early years, study skills have become a little bit of an issue over middle school, as in she doesn't feel she needs to. I know study skills are going to be extremely important, and test taking skills are going to be very, very important now that we're getting into high school years. So we're taking this course to kind of get us over that study skills hump. We'll also be covering vocabulary this year. My younger one is doing vocabulary, using vocabulary cartoons, which is a great visual way to learn vocabulary, since my older one did it this past year. My older one is going to be using vocab through our SAT prep list of vocabulary words. I also like this online program called Vocab One. So it's all vocabulary games. You buy it once, you can use it for a million years. It's a download. And so I've been using this for the past year, and that way they can kind of play those, silly little kind of vocabulary games on the computer to help them retain their words. Now, because we are faith-based learners and I like to bring our faith into our curriculum, we will be using Experiencing God as our kind of devotional time this year. I thought the girls would be really kind of at the right age to appreciate that little book. It is a group Bible study that I have turned into like a devotional. So I've kind of just split that up for them. And we're stretching that out very long throughout the homeschool year. And for their kind of extracurriculars, as I mentioned before, we'll be using tutors for Chinese, Spanish, and writing. And I'm specifically doing that this year instead of any co-ops. I planned this all in advance, so I'm not having to worry about a co-op canceling halfway throughout the year and thinking I've been relying on that co-op to cover science, for example. So I chose to do one-on-one tutors for the whole year this year. And if we do have group classes because things get better later throughout the year, then that's just gravy. We'll also be doing writing lessons and tennis and music lessons. And I'm really hoping that my daughter's art class, the group art class, reforms as well. So that's kind of how we plan throughout the year. And I love laying this out on the spreadsheet. You guys will have to kind of look online at the course and the YouTube video that I'm going to put up, just walking you through so you can actually see the spreadsheets and how we laid out our year. All of my planning is done. It's August 1st. I've planned out the entire year, and I've planned ahead for the holidays that my husband has off work, and when I need to worry about testing and portfolios or whatever it might be based on where I live and those requirements. So I can kind of go through it for the rest of the year. Another great tip I have for you is as you look at each program or each little curriculum subject that you're going to be doing, do whatever work you need to do for that over the summer. Do it now before you start homeschool. So if I need to make copies or print stuff out, I print it all out and I organize it in manila folders by the week. So it's done. Our vocabulary, I made all of our copies. I did all of the printouts. It's already organized and it's done for me. I never have to go make copies again. My kid is never waiting for me to get off a client call because they need a copy of something and they can't find that copy. It's done already for them. I also love to purchase the science experiment kits. I buy the kit that goes with our science program and it's all done and labeled for me. So we're not waiting on science experiments because they need a paper plate. And I don't typically buy paper plates or this one random, ingredient that I can't seem to find in the grocery store that week. So all of that is pre-done for me. It's laid out, it's organized. So again, all of the organization is just done and I don't have to worry about it once the school year starts. And once my work picks back up and I'm in the middle of a project and I forgot to organize the second semester of government or whatever it might be. Those are a couple little tips as you get started. Definitely check out the course about how to plan out your homeschool year at once. It really isn't as hard as you think. It is not as intimidating as it sounds, and it's going to save you so much stress. That's kind of one of my big things. One of the things I also want to mention as the working homeschooling parent is plan in the fun, okay? It's easy to get stuck in the drudgery of do page 22. And now tomorrow you're going to read page 23 and do this worksheet. It's really easy to get stuck in the monotony and drudgery and blah. So plan ahead for the fun. One of the things I did this past year is if my daughter was reading one of those literature books and I know that a movie has been made off that book, The second she's done that book, we celebrate by getting to watch the movie. We plan for extra time for doing games that kind of go along with our lesson plans. I look for if there is a science museum exhibit about what we're studying for the year, I work that in on any particular days that my husband has off as a field trip day or on the weekends. Last year, my youngest studied marine biology. And because of the pandemic, we did not get to go to the aquarium like I had planned. So this year, we're going to go to the aquarium because I want to. So I try to plan ahead for any fun that we can have. If you're studying world geography, look online this summer for recipes from the countries you're studying from. So we will often pick food from the time period or from the country that we're studying, whatever it might be, and work those into our curriculum. How do I do that? Is when I get an idea, when we were studying medieval history and there was a recipe in there to do a medieval meal, I basically pulled out that recipe, made myself an extra copy, put a Post-it on that lesson plan so I would know exactly what I needed to add to my grocery list, and so we could make that meal. When we study world geography, when we were studying India, we went to a local Indian restaurant, talked to the owners of the restaurant about India because they were from there. And they told us about how the food was different in different regions. And this was from their home area, from this place, and so on. And my kids were just absorbing all of that as little kids. So feel free to kind of plan for the fun. Homeschool is not supposed to be drudgery. Okay, guys? It is supposed to be fun. And I think as working homeschooling parents, it's hard to work that stuff in. It's hard to be spontaneous about that. So you just have to plan ahead. Now, as we wrap up our episode today, I want to thank you all for listening in. There are a ton of great podcasts out there, but you chose to spend your time here with me, so thank you. In the show notes, you're going to find links to my site, workingwhilehomeschooling.com, and all of the great ways that you can connect with me online. Now, if you enjoyed today's podcast, feel free to become one of our listener supporters by following the link in our show notes. Just a small monthly donation helps us continue with great content like you heard here today on the Working While Homeschooling podcast. Your positive online reviews, subscribing, and sharing the podcast with your friends is also greatly appreciated. And if you know someone that you think would be a great guest of our podcast, please let me know at julie@workingwhilehomeschooling.com. Thank you for listening in today, everyone. I hope the beginning of your homeschool year goes well. Please feel free to join us in our Facebook group for continuing conversation on today's topic and beyond. I look forward to seeing each of you soon at our next podcast for Working While Homeschooling.